You know the Honda Prologue, Honda's first production EV for the North American market? Well, the all-new 2024 Acura ZDX is Acura's first production EV for the North American market, and much like the rest of its lineup, it is quicker, it's nicer, and it's more expensive than the Honda. But how much nicer is it? Well, that's what we're here to find out here on the rough and tough streets just outside of Santa Barbara, California, where we have one of these ZDXs all to ourselves for a little while. Let's check it out. Let's talk power and powertrain. The ZDX is offered in two distinct flavors at launch, with the base A-Spec offering both a single and dual motor setup. The single motor ZDX sounds pretty pokey with 358 horsepower at the rear wheels and 313 miles of range, but we're gonna guess that most will spring for the dual motor A-Spec, which boosts power to 490 horsepower and 304 miles of range. But I would highly suggest going with what we have here, which is the spicy Type S. At launch, it is the most performance-oriented ZDX you can buy, with the dual motors boosting horsepower by just 9 horsepower to 499 horsepower, not 500. But keep in mind, torque does jump from the dual motor A-Spec's 437 pounds-feet of torque to the Type S's 544 pounds-feet of torque, which makes this the torquiest Acura ever put to production. But do keep in mind that range does drop to 278 miles. And it's not just power that makes the Type S. As you've probably noticed, we've got big old 6-piston yellow Brembo calipers at all 4 corners. There's the requisite Type S badging on the front wings here. The front fascia and the rear fascia are a little bit more aggressive, obviously. You can add some optional extras like carbon fiber applique, rear spoiler, but the most important bit is that underneath all this extra badging and stuff, there is a performance air suspension that, when put in sport mode, will drop the car by around 0.6 inches and of course stiffen things up. But Acura's taking this kind of seriously, so there's even a performance wheel and tire package that, in addition to adding some gloss black wheels, you've got sticky Continental performance tires at all 4 corners. Now we're going to talk about the stuff that Acura really doesn't want us to. Just like the Honda Prologue is really a reworked Chevrolet Blazer EV, the ZDX is a ground-up reskin of the Cadillac Lyriq, riding on the same chassis, battery pack, motors, and general structure under the Acura metalwork. They've done a good job Acurifying both the exterior and interior, but if you know what to look for, there is still some very clear General Motors stuff to be found. This is a nice interior, but most of what you see is plucked straight from GM's catalog. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's something you just got to keep in mind. I mean, the infotainment display, the driver display, the signal stock, the shifter stock, the physical controls for the climate functions, all of this is straight from GM's catalog. I mean, the start button, the virtual backup camera here, it's got OnStar. The good news is it also has its own version of GM's trick hands-free Super Cruise control system that works just as well in the ZDX as it does in the Chevy and the Cadillac. And it's all bolted together with the quality expected of both the price and the badge. So with all that in mind, let's talk about how it actually drives. Of course, I am restricting my opinions of the ZDX on what we're driving today, which is the ZDX Type S. I think one of the trickiest things newcomers face is understanding what Acura's Type S badge is and isn't. It is more performance-oriented than a standard Acura and more performance-oriented than the A-Spec. That also gets confusing. That's just an appearance package. So it is going to have more power. It's going to have better suspension. It's going to have better tires, better driving assists. But what it's not going to do is try to compete with BMW's M division, with Mercedes AMG, or Audi's RS division. This is running right down the middle, cutting the difference between performance and daily usability. I would say on average, Acura Type S products are more livable and comfortable than your average BMW M or AMG product. They're also a whole heck of a lot cheaper on average. So what does that mean for the ZDX Type S? It means for a heavy EV crossover, it's gonna be more fun to drive than you might expect. I will say, temper your expectations. This is still a rather digital experience. I would say the majority of EVs, performance or not, are kind of artificial to drive. That's not saying it isn't fun, because it is fun, but there's a definite disconnect from the steering, the braking, the accelerator pedal. And that's just something that's insurmountable for the most part for modern performance EVs. With that being said, when this is in sport mode, which affects the steering weight, it affects the go pedal response, it's got some juice with 499 horsepower, not 500. Obviously, this being an EV, the most impressive bit is the instant access to that 544 pounds-feet of torque. And I know on the highway, I was leaving our camera car for absolute dead when I would smash the go pedal. It's definitely going to be one of those experiences that pushes you back in the seat under full acceleration, but it is not as painful as the super high performance EVs that are out there, which again is right in line with Acura's Type S brand, so makes total sense. Steering is on the lighter side, but it weights up nicely in sport mode. I will say that the brake pedals blending between the pure regenerative braking setup and the physical brakes is really well done. A lot of EVs will have you jerking forward because their brakes are so darn touchy, but not with the ZDX. The brake balance is quite nice, quite intuitive. I had no problems almost immediately acclimating to the pedal. And since those bright yellow 6-piston Brembos are not just jewelry for the wheels, this thing does stop quite confidently and aggressively if you need it to. And as I said before, it does handle better than you might expect a car of this weight and size, but that does not come at the expense of a smooth and composed ride. I left the suspension in normal mode when I was driving primarily on the highway, and no complaints. I mean, very smooth, very composed, excellent body control, especially over some, those expansion joints in the highway, impressively smooth. The same can be said for the suspension's sport mode. We're in sport mode right now, and we're going over some, a little bit of a rough pavement, not too bad, and we're no problem. Bump, vibration, and resonance from the road, pretty well isolated. And since this does keep your drive mode locked in until you kind of manually select it, I can imagine more than a few owners are going to forget that they left it in sport mode because it is still quite comfortable. Again, it feels quite confident, but you can't even remotely begin to compare this dynamically to the new Integra Type S. That's ridiculous. But obviously that's the point. Acura's closest analog to this would be the MDX Type S, except that is a 3-row larger gas-powered crossover, whereas the ZDX is, it's a 2-row electric crossover. Can't really compare the two. So it's kind of in a league of its own in the Acura lineup. And while you are enjoying the refinement and the comfort, don't forget that you can always... Whoa, not bad. Yeah, very comfortable, pretty exciting. And any EV worth its salt, in my opinion, has a one-pedal driving function, or as close as you can get to one-pedal driving function. And the ZDX has 3 settings, just like the Prologue: off, normal, and high. I've been driving around between off and normal, and I just manually had to go in and set it to high. So we're on an incline right now, and that drops it basically from 60 to 50, really quite aggressively. Kind of got to be careful. The car's falling behind me. I don't want to have them get too close. I would say for normal city driving, spoiler alert, normal is probably the one you want to go with. High can be pretty aggressive. But if you'd like more regen quickly on demand without having to hit a button on the screen, there is an active regen paddle right on the left side of the steering wheel that you can hit to activate more regen. While that is very cool, it's really nothing new and not surprising since, while the bones do come from a GM product, that regen paddle has been on a lot of EV-oriented GM products in the past. Speaking of pricing, this fully loaded Type S sits at just over $75,000. Is it worth it? Well, it is a bit, but it really fully depends on your needs and expectations. But for my full thoughts and reviews, you gotta go to cars.com/news.